What's up, everybody? Welcome to Houston. We have a problem. Episode 33. We're a third of a way to 100 episodes. Wild. Sorry, I was 2 minutes late. I was trying to find a good shirt. I decided to go with a rodeo clown today. So, Technicolor cowboy. Let's see here. All right. What did I put in the description? Oh, yeah. Lots of green today. Things go. Bigger volumes on things like metamaterials are happening. There's all these rumors. There's rumors back in like February that Amazon was going to buy AMC, and then they started those rumors again. That's not going to happen. I mean, to be able to purchase a company like AMC, you have to get the shareholders to agree to it, and the shareholders own 85% of the company. So unless Amazon is offering like $100,000 a share, nobody who owns AMC is going to blink. So that's not happening. There's no way the board can get approval for that. No. Amazon is not buying AMC. What else was in the thing? I'm sure it'll come to me. The futures theory. So the futures theory lays out that every quarter there is a due date when futures contracts expire. And I'm not a futures guy, so you have to bear with me. There's people who can explain it better on Reddit. But when we saw a pop in March, that might have been related to the futures contracts. When we saw a pop at the end of May and beginning of June, that might have been the futures contracts. And if it holds up, we should see one at the end of this month, because all the future contracts either expire on September 9th or must be rolled over. And if they're going to be rolled over, there's a whole bunch of buying that has to happen of stocks involved with those future contracts. So if that holds true, then after hours on Friday should be the beginning of that 10-day period window where they have to roll over a bunch of stock. So we have that to look forward to. What else is happening? Yeah. Well, let's go to the chat, since that's why you're here anyway. And if more news pops into my head, I'll give it a look. Okay. So, you guys are a lot of you in the chat already. Projay's son, did you see the New York Post article with Biden doing an executive order for big business this week that mentioned Citadel, BlackRock, Vanguard, and Jane Street? I have not. If you got a link, by all means send it to me. Send DM or tag me on Twitter. I'd love to see it. Yeah, metamaterials making moves. They went up quite a bit today. I think that they're going to go bigger as the weeks come on. So, happy birthday, 750 Nut. All right. Oh, Nick Callis just jumped in here. Nick Callis, what diabolical shenanigans did the shorts do to make it look like they covered their GME short position? Well, they did debt swaps, a whole bunch of debt swaps. Depending on if they were a market maker or had market maker status when they sold naked shares, they just let it go and never did anything about covering it. And then they made those positions look like long positions, which is completely illegal. What else did they do? They bought a whole bunch of options, like deep options that expire 2-3 years down the line. And then they said that those options covered their position while ever exercising those positions. What else did they do? They did lots of stuff. Yeah, those are some of the big ones. I'm sure there's things that we'll find out post-mortem after all this as to what they managed to accomplish to pretend like they closed or covered these positions. If they had closed or covered, the price would have gone to $100,000 or more by now. So they've done nothing of the sort. They owe so many shares, and the volumes that are happening are not reflecting that. And people who own the stock are not selling, so you can't cover if they don't sell. And here we are. Deck P. Houston, can you turn down the volume of that shirt? Well, it's a loud one. It doesn't quite show up because on your screen, like, this is very pink, but it looks very orange. So it's even brighter in person than what my crappy knockoff camera can convey. Okay. What do you think of CRISPR will make us all superhumans? From Josh Walker. Those who don't know, CRISPR is a process for editing DNA. I think I touched on this. Did I touch on this last week, or was that? Duh. Might have been on that Twitch stream I did the other night. So yeah, I made a Twitch channel, and that Twitch channel, I'll put together the most boring puzzles you've ever seen in your entire life and chit chat with you. So I'm gonna try to do that maybe a couple times a week if I can, late in the evening. It'll be like my nighttime activity. But anyway, someone was asking about gene editing the other day. I cannot remember when. I think it's very possible that we'll see gene editing in the future. I don't think that like an adult human will have much of a chance of like going into a machine and getting their DNA edited, but probably little tiny zygotes will have the opportunity. You might see some sort of hereditary disease. At first, it'll probably be like targeting hereditary diseases. But in the end, you know, there'll always be some black market person who's like, you want your child to be an Olympic athlete? Well, here, I'll make it happen. I'll put this gorilla DNA into them and they'll be stronger than anything. So, you know, 100 years down the line, we may be forced to deal with like doping athletes and athletes that are genetically created in a lab. And cyborgs probably too. So we'll have everything. Chicago Transit Minority. That's a good name. He's a long-time listener, first-time caller. With Amazon opening a bunch of retail locations and Sears selling a bunch of retail locations, could this play out where Amazon buys out Sears? That's interesting. Very possibly. It would cost a fortune because Amazon has, Sears has a whole bunch of like hard assets. So maybe they buy out Sears and then they do a special dividend for everything else. That might make sense. I mean, Amazon exists because Sears was stupid enough to sell off or close their catalog service in like the early 90s. And their logistics people that had like hundreds of years of experience shipping stuff all over the country, catalog style, you can bet that those logistics people ended up at Amazon, teaching Amazon how to ship things around the country. So it would probably be a full circle if that were the case. If you're an online retailer, you may as well have a brick and mortar presence as well to get the brick and mortar people. Plus, ultimately, it can be used as warehouse space as well. So, you know, you could have giant warehouses around the country, or you can have a whole bunch of big box stores, and those box stores can ship stuff as well. So you just have a shipping department inside there, and they're pulling things off the shelves and doing local shipping or delivery even. So I could probably cut down on a whole bunch of postage that Amazon pays for things. Yeah. Nick Callis. Gabe Plotkin's hedge fund is shrinking faster than his manhood in a cold pool. Is Melvin trapped in GME? Yes, Melvin is still trapped in GME. They lost so much money for their billionaire members, clients, that a lot of those folks, I think, pulled their cash out and were like, you're on your own. And Melvin still had, you know, this much margin that they're dealing with. They don't have the cash on hand to close out their GME positions. They got a $2.75 billion injection from Citadel in 0.72, but their obligations are like, 60, 70, 80 billion dollars, maybe more. So they didn't close out positions. They're still just as screwed as they were January 28th. They may have bought a whole bunch of deep in the money options, but they don't have the cash to exercise those options, so they'll never be able to close those positions. They're still stuck with them. Or they did a debt swap with somebody and they're stuck without someone else's toxic debt. So, you know, either way, everyone involved in this is still screwed. Let's see here. Best Buy DeWood. Houston Thinkorswim is rejecting all limit prices any higher than a couple hundred above what should I do for MOAS. That's when you set your alerts, man. That's what I have to do because it won't let me set things above like 50% of current market price. So I'm going to wait until that market price is absolutely bonkers and then limit order my first share. And when that one sells, limit order my second share, 50% more than that. When that sells, limit order my third share, and go on from there. That's my only way of solution I have. There's a couple of people in other brokerages. Was it SoFi? I can't remember. There are people that were able to set limit orders of like $10 million, $9,999,999.99. And then everyone else is stuck, having to watch the charts for when MOAS happens. Until then, we'll hear about it. We'll have plenty of days to get ready to do that stuff. Dr. Stonk, last night's stream on Jackson's channel was bitching. Would love to see you host Boss Blunts. Oh yeah, I'd love to get Boss Blunts on here. I need to actually do some practice runs with hosting the Zoom or whatever it might be, and figure out how to get two heads inside of this frame and have the other person actually be heard. Because the one practice run I did so far with Rocky Outcrop, like Rocky Outcrop was supposed to come on my show, and I couldn't figure out how to get his sound to come through, so I ended up going on his show. And that was what we had. So this is why Houston needs a producer. All right, Trill ran today. Someone just tweeted that to me right before I came on. Let's look at. I did not have a chance to go see before I came on here. Okay, Trill. Wait, this is not showing anything on here. Why am I not seeing anything? Oh, there's that. There's that. Oh, you're not showing up. Why? ¿Por qué? There's like, sorry, my wonderful, stupid. All right, I'm gonna have to close that. I'm gonna delete you. Sorry, one sec. Delete that. Go away. Add window capture. Add source. Add new source. We're gonna call it Chrome. Add that. Select you, and why is it not giving me? It won't let me. Oh, maybe is that? Oh, there we go. Yay. Okay. Haha. And you're gigantic, and I'm out of the frame, and I got to reset this whole thing again because everything in the world has to be as hard as possible. Okay, and then I take you and I drag you down there. Boom. All right, Trill. Yeah, Trill looks flat. Why am I not seeing it run today? Did they stop trading? Oh, that's what happened. Ah, did they do some sort of reverse split or something? Is that why we saw it jump from $5 to 17 and then hold really hard right there? Oh, Pfizer bought them out. That is why. There, that's the news. Why they got a giant offer for their stock. Okay. Huh. All right. That's why. Interesting. So Pfizer did a big buy, and Pfizer got approval today as well. So I'm sure their stock went really well. Pfizer. Nope. That is not what I want to search. I want to search in Yahoo Finance, you ding dong. Why did you not search for Yahoo Finance? All right. There we go. Hey, that wasn't much at all. They got approval. They got FDA approval, and the stock did basically nothing. It was a big run up until today. Weird. Stock market's so weird. Nothing works the way you think it should. Like, is it gonna get approval? Oh my goodness! And they get all antsy and in the pantsy, and they get the approval. And they're like, meh. It's like, oh, they're gonna report their earnings. Their earnings are they're expected to make a whole bunch of money. Let's buy this, and then they report, oh, made a whole bunch of money, and the market's like, meh. So, oh, all right. Smooth Guy Beats, can you give us an opinion on computer share and its worth since it's in that same building as Citadel? Really? I did not know that. Computer share is like an old school. You are sort of the brokerage. Like it's put in your name and it's held in there. There are people who use it and they trust it. I heard it's a little bit antiquated. The user interface is kind of hard to navigate and not particularly user friendly for passwords and stuff. It's much more security operated, so it's very security focused. And if you want to, renew your password, you gotta like write them a letter and send them your ID and all this stuff. And they've got some legal department that stamps everything. But what it does is it puts the stock in your name and makes it impossible to be lent out. And that's the driving force people have for getting their shares into computer share. It's just an exhausting process to try to move that stuff over. So I haven't done it yet, but other people who have done it seem to be pretty happy. So that's my opinion on computer share. As far as them being in the same building as Citadel, I did not know that until today. But those big buildings have lots of floors and lots of clients, and that's how they operate. So I'm not sure that there's any conspiracy between the fact that computer share and Citadel in the same building, other than that they're both in the financial district in Chicago. So yeah, there you go. The volume's very low. Can I turn it up higher? I'm always scared to adjust the volume because people then scream at me that their heads are blowing out of their skulls. So there we go. That's as high as I can make it. I have no ability to make it any higher than what it currently is. Maybe I can get the microphone closer to my face. That might help. There we go. All right, Keith. Hopefully that's okay for you. Mark Tran, Houston, what are the chances of GME doing another share offering? Gherkin brought it up in his daily Reddit thread. Well, GameStop is sitting on more than $1 billion right now. They paid off all of their debt. I don't see them doing too much at the moment, where they would need a whole bunch of money. Like they may overhaul all of their stores, which ones they're going to keep, and that might cost a fortune. They may, build some warehouses around the country so they can do more e-commerce that way. That might cost a fortune, but at the moment they're sitting on cash, and they can develop a little bit more in the e-space without quite investing into physical capital. So I don't know when or if they would do such an offering. My guess is they would wait until the price goes bonkers again. I mean, the last couple of times they did offerings, they waited till the price was like $300, so that the average sell price over the days or weeks that it took them to sell were pretty high. I mean, MOAS would be an excellent time for them to offer shares, right? They could say, hey, we're going to offer 10,000 shares and just sit on that until MOAS happens, and then that would not affect the MOAS at all. They would get more money than God, and they'd be fine. So, yeah, that's my opinion on that at the moment. But I don't see them doing a share offering in the near future, unless the squeeze starts to happen, and then they can have billions and billions and billions of cash on hand and not have to worry about anything ever again. Okay. Be real time. What's the likelihood MetaMask squeezes when GME squeezes? Very likely. I think all these stocks are going to squeeze because they all have the same hedge funds, trying to short them out of existence, and that's what's happening. Is the volume still crazy low? Because I put the volume up as loud as it goes. I cannot make it any louder on here. Sorry. I don't know how to make it any louder than what I just did. Okay. Pastor God, this name is just so brilliant. Plaster blunt around. Any thoughts on Root Carvana merger? It looks squeezy. I have no idea about Root. So these are the guys that like make the hats and jackets and stuff. Carvana and Root exclusively partner to develop industry first integrated auto insurance solutions for Carvana customers. Oh, it must be something completely different than what I thought. Well, it sounds like they're working together. Are they merging though? I don't know. Carvana. Oops. And Carvana. There we go. Man, Carvana's a big company. Yeah, I know nothing. I know nothing about Root and Carvana. That's something I have to look into, Pastor, and see what happens with that. These auto companies, these auto sale companies, seem to be definitely consolidating more and more and more and more. So you got your what are the name of those companies? Okay, Used Cars, Carvana. What's the other big one? We can just like drop off your car and they'll pay you for it, like no matter what condition it's in, with the hopes that you'll buy something else from them. Yeah. Okay. Project Sun also asks thoughts on the 90 days mentioned in GME's prospectus about moving shares to a new depository. I think it's 90 days is coming up in September. Apparently it was boilerplate text used in numerous filings. Well, the theory around it was something to the effect of if they offer a crypto dividend and the Depository Trust Corporation says, oh, we cannot issue that to people, that would give GameStop the excuse to say, okay, give us all our shares back, we're moving out. And that would force a recall of all the GameStop shares. So that's the hypothesis I heard over and over again about that. But I'm not sure what other depository they'd move it to. If anyone knows of the other depositories they could move such shares to. I mean, they got Fidelity has their own clearinghouse, and JP Morgan now has their own clearinghouse. Maybe they would do something with them. I don't know. So, Are CompuShare DTCC insured in case of MOAS? iTube? I don't know. I don't know about CompuShare enough to give you one answer or the other. I'm sure they have some sort of insurance through FDIC or something. CompuShare insurance. Computer share. Investor inquiries. Sorry, I forgot to put my thing on scene. Insurance account. Let's just see what they have to say about insurance. Let's go to CompuShare, shall we? And let's investigate together. Their website is incredibly slow, I can tell you that. Okay. Global leader, transfer agency, corporate trust, corporate engagement, white computer share, security. Focus on security, Genuity. My guess is that there probably is some sort of like $250,000 insurance, like there is for all brokerage accounts and things like that. But they are a transfer agent, not technically a brokerage, but you can act like a broker through them. Individuals. Why join us? Oh, not a career. Dang it, I don't want to work there. Come back, CompuShare. I'm a shareholder. Don't they have frequent check questions? We'll go here. Insurance. Yeah, I don't know. I'm sure somebody else who has more time can find that for you, because I'm not seeing anything about their insurance policies for their accounts at the moment. But my guess is there's probably some federal insurance program if they also don't have their own that they can use. Okay. I missed Josh Pet Pals, Tennessee. How old is Monkey Butt? How long have you had her? Where did you find her? Also, can you explain why the island of Kauai has so many versatile climates? Yes, I can do all those things. Okay, Monkey Butt. Monkey Butt, here. So, Monkey Butt, she turned 6 sometime this month. We don't quite know for sure. I've had her for a little more than 5 years. I got her when she was about 9 or 10 months old. I got her from the Kitsap County Humane Society, and she was part of a program the Alaska Airlines does where they fly rescue animals from Hawaii to non-kill shelters around the country for free because they probably get some sort of huge tax break. Maybe this is also why, because my microphone is not quite facing. There we go. And she was the only dog that wasn't a pit bull or a chihuahua that showed up. And I was like, that's a cool looking dog. I'm going to get that one. And she's been lovely ever since. She was a handful. The Catahoula's are absolutely bonkers. And then but at a much younger age, she was like, I'm an adult now. And she stopped being quite so bonkers. Why is the island of Hawaii, well, the Hawaiian Islands in general, have so many climates? Let us go to the Google Earth. Ding! Bum, bum, bum. Okay, Google Earth. Time to do your thing. Time to show the Hawaii. Whoop. Okay, so Hawaii lies, right near the Tropic of Cancer. It is very rainy on one side, very dry on the other. Very rainy on one side, very dry on the other. Very rainy on one side, very dry on the other. Very rainy on one side, very dry on the other. Very rainy on one side, very dry on the other. So what we have in Hawaii is we've got these trade winds. And I've talked about how the trade winds form. So the equator gets absolutely baked by the sun 12 hours a day. And all this hot air rises. And as it rises, it flows out north and south, ends up descending upon the 30 degree latitudes. So we have got these major desert regions of the 30 degree latitudes around the world. Here in North America, it is the Sonoran, Mojave, so on, Western United States, basically. In South America, we've got the Atacama Desert. In Africa, we've got Sahara and the Kalahari. We also have Saudi Arabia, Gobi. In Australia, we've got the Outback, and so on. So we've got these huge, giant, high-pressure systems that constantly make these areas very, very dry and push away all storm systems largely. And this descending air warms and dries out and then pushes outwards. And that, as it pushes outwards, it's trying to return back to the equator to complete that convection cycle, right? So equator gets really hot, rises up, goes back to 30 degree latitudes, descends, comes back to the equator, rises up, and just does this thing all the time. So in its process of descending, the air wants to blow off the continent across the Pacific back to the equator again. And it blows across Hawaii. So what happens in Hawaii is you get what's called orographic lift. So you have some big old mountains here. And of course, I don't have my 3D turned on. Where are you? Terrain? There we go. All right, so we got some big old mountains. And the wind comes along and hits the mountains. And when the wind hits the mountains, it wants to rise. And when wind rises, the moisture in that air cools and thus condenses, so it makes clouds. So it will rain like crazy on the windward side of these islands. The town of Hilo gets 150, 200 inches of rain a year. There are spots on the upper slopes that will get 400 or 500 inches of rain a year. The rainiest spot in the entire world is in Kauai, where up here in the highlands in Kauai, the rainiest spots get something like, oh, sorry, it's Oahu, wrong island, Kauai. The rainiest spots get something like 570 inches of rain a year on average, which is just bonkers. I mean, that's like 13 times as much rain as we get in Seattle, where people say it rains all the time. And it's just torrential downpours all day long as this wind is blowing this air up, cooling off, dumping rain. And the air will cool off about 5 degrees for every 1,000 feet you climb. And depending on the moisture content, it doesn't take long to make a cloud. And Hawaii is very humid. We're talking like 85% humidity all the time. So clouds can form not too high up. All right, so as this air pushes up, cools at 5 degrees for every 1,000 feet, dumps a bunch of rain. Then the trade winds keep blowing and it starts to fall off the other side of the mountain. And when it falls off the other side of the mountain, let's zoom in a little bit here. Come on, quit, keep going. So it zooms off the other side of the mountain and the air starts to descend. And as it descends, it warms at 5.5 degrees for every 1,000 feet. And all that water vapor that was condensed, all that water that was condensed into rain droplets and clouds starts to dry out and turn into water vapor and then mix into the atmosphere. And so the leeward side of the islands are all dry and very desert-like. So on the big island here, come on, you stupid. There we go. On the big island, you get 400 inches of rain a year right here, and then out here in like Kauai High, you'll get, I don't know, 10 inches of rain a year at most. So there's not much. This is like a very, very dry desert on the leeward side of these mountains. So that's why Hawaii has so many climate zones. Plus, so you've got, your tropical jungle, you've got your very hot desert. You go up the mountain ranges, and as it cools, you can get things that are more like temperate rainforests. So there's up here on Mauna Kea, I think in here, there's a whole bunch of like apple trees that were planted because it's very temperate. And then you get, tundra. You can have, there was basically permanent snowpack for much of the year until the 1960s on Mauna Loa. And they actually bulldozed chunks of Mauna Loa to make a ski resort. So you can get Arctic climates. You can get temperate rainforest, tropical rainforest, desert, steppe. I think there's 9 of 11 possible climate zones geographical climate zones represented in the Big Island of Hawaii alone. So there's a whole vast array in there of places. You can, one drive, you can see it all. It's pretty amazing if you drive through Waimea here. You can see this line, like rain, no rain, and there's literally will be a line sometimes right down the hill, and there'll be cows like standing inside a cloud, and then cows just like cooking in the sunshine, and there's just this line between dry grass and really green lush grass. It's pretty crazy how noticeable it is. And they get lots of wildfires in here also because there's lightning strikes because thunderstorms will go kazap and then burn down a bunch of trees. And they also made a huge mistake of planting a whole bunch of eucalyptus trees in Hawaii because they thought, oh, eucalyptus grows fast, we'll have a timber industry. Well, eucalyptus can only germinate their seeds if they catch on fire, and so they just burn like crazy. Pretty terrible. Also, the eucalyptus forest that they put in here, so they made a whole bunch of eucalyptus forests in this area for timber, and the heavy amounts of rain made the timber grow so fast that the wood would just split and be gross and couldn't be used for anything. So there's like no economic incentive to cut down the eucalyptus and put native plants back in. It's just going to keep growing. And then the trees are so acidic that the soil makes it so that none of the other plants in Hawaii want to grow. Well, that's a tangent. Thank you, Josh Pet Pals. There we go. That's why there's so many climates in Hawaii. And we'll see this stuff here as well. So, all right, tangent a little bit more. So we go to North America. We have Washington State, where I live. We've got rainforests on the windward side of the mountain ranges because the wind blows off the Pacific. And then when the wind forces the air to descend on the other side, it dries out. And so there's areas out here in eastern Washington that get 10 inches of rain a year. They're very, very, very dry, full of sagebrush. Few cactuses here and there. They just get colder in the wintertime than you think of most deserts. In eastern Oregon, same way. You can see the green of the Sierra Nevadas because the rainfall will hit the redwood forest in here. And then on the leeward side, lots of desert. And we go to the largest rainforest in the world. Windward side is the opposite direction on the southern hemisphere. So all the air blows the clouds from the Atlantic over the jungle here, which also is rainforest along the equator. So they have lots of humidity of air rising and then turning into rain clouds and raining. And then a whole bunch of rain on the windward side of the Andes. And then the opposite side, where the Atacama is, not only do you have descending air, but you have the wind blowing this air and causing it to descend. And as it descends, it dries out even more. So there's places in Atacama that haven't had a measurable rainfall in like 400 years. They have buildings made of salt blocks because it never rains. So they don't have to worry about the buildings falling apart. The only drier place in the entire world is Antarctica. Antarctica actually gets less precipitation in places than Atacama. So the driest desert in the world is technically the snowfields of the Antarctica because all the wind blows around the continent and not through the continent, and can be very, very dry there. So you can imagine how long it takes for millions of years of snowfall that's almost immeasurable year after year to make huge glaciers on Antarctica. It takes a very long time. All right, that's a good tangent. Excellent question. Thank you. And I totally blew past probably a million other questions while I was yik-yakking about that. Okay. Okay, there was Pastor's. There's Josh's. Jordan, hey Houston, at what price would you sell your first AMC share? Thanks, not financial advice. I haven't really thought about that too much. Somewhere in the 5 figures for sure. I don't know. I don't own a ton of AMC. So like whatever I sell AMC for is probably just going to be like icing on the cake for me. And, you know, hopefully it's enough to buy a house, pay off debt, help family members, things like that. So it just it'll be just gravy. I'm counting on my GME stock to go so nuts that I could be like, oh, AMC, yeah, I use that to, you know, wipe myself or something. Don Van Dudeward. Houston, great show as always. Question, could you give some examples of stocks and dividend stock you are going to purchase after MOAS? Oh, man. Well, like my dad is, you know, he's a retired dude. So his stock holdings are dividend stocks, you know, things like Phillips 66, which gives like 90 cents every quarter, day in, day out, year round. And they you know, you can do a search, like they'll give you lists all the time of like top dividend stocks. Most of them are health insurance stocks, and I probably won't invest in them because I want to murder health insurance companies. But health insurance companies always have kick butt dividends. I mean, a few years ago, I mean, it must be like 20 years ago now, there was a list of the 20 most profitable companies in America. 19 of them were health insurance companies, and the 20th was Philip Morris. So, you know, that seems like a match made in heaven. I think Philip Morris now, you know, they've got that huge settlement for tobacco. They're probably not on that same list. But health insurance companies make so much money. Health insurance is basically like 1/7 of our entire economy. The health industry in general. Maybe it's 1/6 now. But we're talking $3 trillion a year essentially go through health insurance companies who then pay off, you know, drug distributors, massage therapists, doctors, or whatever. And they keep like 30% of that. 30 cents of every dollar you spend on healthcare is administrative fees for your health insurance company. And the health insurance forces the price of things to jack up. So they get more and more and more every single year for these administrative costs of basically having the money pass through their hands, and then they give it to the service you need. And so they are probably the single greatest dividend stocks out there. If we search for it, I bet we'll see health insurance companies pop up. Let's go to the scene. Let's go to Chrome, take the old Google Earth off of there, and let's just type in top performing dividend stocks. Okay, here's money for U.S. news. Dividend stocks. Oh, you can make me do a listicle? Oh my god. Oh shit. I'm on calculator, not Chrome. Ha, there we go. Oops. What a dork. Okay. Go away. All right, so they're going to be doing. I don't want to do a stupid clickbait crap. Nerd Wallet. Are you gonna give me one of those stupid things also? Investing dividend stocks. How to invest dividend stocks. Okay. Gilead Sciences. All right, there's medical. I don't know half these companies. There's Merck. There's more medical stuff. But that's not insurance. Is Altira? Tell me what these companies are. Don't just say their names. But there's healthy dividends on these things. 7% for Altira. Altria. What's Altria? I have no idea. Altria, moving beyond smoking, adult smokers. Oh, it's the company that, okay, they make like gum, I guess, for smokers. So there's the tobacco guys popping right up there again. This is why those hedge funds that focus only on SIN accounts, they call them SIN funds, make so much money. They only spend money on like gun manufacturers, pornography, cigarettes, weed, alcohol, and they just make a killing every year because people like their sins. If the economy tanks, people are going to drink their sorrows away. If the economy rockets really high, people are going to celebrate with alcohol. So the sin funds always do really well. I have no idea. Oh, Bank of Hawaii is in there. Weird. Hawaiian banking is really strange because they don't allow other outside states, banks that are based in other outside states, to set up in Hawaii. So they've got a pretty good monopoly on banking there. When I went to school in Hawaii, I had to open up a Bank of Hawaii account because there was no way to get money to me otherwise. I had all this money in another account and I couldn't do anything with it. Yeah, let's see here. Let's do health insurance dividend stocks and see what we have. 10 best healthcare dividend stocks. This is Yahoo Finance. Don't play a video. Yes, story continues. Give me numbers. Give me numbers. Give me numbers. Give me a list. All right. Cardinal Health. They got 3%. Amgen, 3%. Oh, these are not necessarily. CVS does have health insurance as well as provide drugs. These are all pharmaceuticals, man. They're not giving me health insurance necessarily. But anyway, it's pretty easy to find those dividend stocks. They'll change slightly year over year, but all right, stop talking. No one wants to listen to you. Go away. But they're out there, and there'll be also like index funds that invest solely in dividend stocks. So even if you don't know which one to get, they'll recalibrate every quarter and do that accordingly. So yeah, just Google will tell you exactly which dividends to get in at the time. There's lots of established industries that no longer have to worry about like investing in new technologies. So your big oil companies, they know exactly what they have and they know what to use it for. They use it for, fuel, herbicides, pesticides, fertilizers, plastic, and they go from there. So anything beyond that is bonus for them. They may in the future start to see flattened sales as battery technology gets better and electric cars become more standard. But then again, they're just going to focus more on plastics and polluting our oceans. So we've got that. Scott Lacoste Jr. I have a Catahoula Chihuahua mix. That is crazy. I can't imagine which one. I don't. I had my sister had a friend when she was in high school who had a wiener dog Dalmatian mix, which was just I don't know how they did it. It blows my mind how those creatures managed to get that done. All right. Just one more writes, deposits of ComputerShare are not insured by the Securities Investor Protection Corporation, Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, or any other federal state agency. So you may have to, if you get ComputerShare, you may have to purchase your own insurance for that account, I guess. You might have to get outside insurance, find some insurance actuator to give you estimate a premium and go from there. But because you hold the physical share, they can't get rid of your share for any reason. They can't sell it off. They can't do anything because it is physically in your account. So maybe that's why they don't really offer insurance for that stuff, because you're not in a brokerage. Nick Callis, could we alter the climate of the Sahara by greening the region through transplanting soil, tree planting, and irrigation? Oh, you want me to bring up Google Earth again. I know it. So here we go. All right. So, get to the Sahara. During the last ice age, the climate was very different. The jet streams got kind of compressed, and so the Sahara actually had lots of foliage. It was much more like a savanna than it is like this giant sandy desert now. But what's happening is the Sahara is growing, and it's growing for a couple of reasons. One, because the Earth's getting hotter, and therefore more air is descending on the Sahara, making that high pressure zone that makes the desert even bigger. And two, people who live in this steppe, the African steppe and the savanna, they largely cook their food using firewood, sometimes dried feces, things like that. But they are hand deforesting a lot of the shrubbery and trees in this entire region. So the ability to keep temperatures a little bit cooler with the shade of those trees is disappearing, which is making it hotter. You also have a whole bunch of cattle eating up things. So they eat up, like cattle love saplings. They absolutely love little saplings. They just munch. And there are these problems in Hawaii as well. There's oh shoot, what's the tree? It's been so long since I've been to Hawaii, the names I can't remember. There's a tree, and they're like the youngest example is like 200 years old, and they're afraid they're going to disappear forever because they're starting to not produce any seeds. And the cattle that roam the mountains in Hawaii love the saplings of these trees. So anytime a seed falls on the ground and makes just a little green bud, the cattle's like, oh, delicious. And that's happening a lot with the herdsmen in this area, is that the trees are getting cut down for fuel for cooking, and the cattle that are there are munching on a lot of the saplings that form, so no new trees are necessarily replacing them. So the desertification happens more. In Ethiopia, prior to their recent conflicts, they did some gigantic, like national pride, let's plant 1 billion trees programs, because they're trying to cool off their country and stop desertification from happening. So there's the population last couple of years have gone out and done huge plantings. So, each person plants 100 trees type plantings for 60 million people. So they've got a whole bunch of tree planting going on in Ethiopia. And I think their goal is to, affect the local climate, because treed areas are a lot cooler than untreed areas. There's been studies done in urban sections where, like, places in cities where rich white people were in the turn of the century, there's a lot of boulevards and a lot of trees. And redlined areas where minorities were forced to live didn't have very many trees, and the temperature difference in these cities is like 10 degrees Celsius. It's crazy for hot days in the summer. So the places where there's trees are a lot cooler. The trees not only provide shade, but the green leaves are actually evaporating water into the atmosphere, and that action keeps the rest of the air really cool. So you can actually affect areas by planting trees, and you can reduce the temperature that way. But like if you go to the center of the Sahara out here where these big giant dunes are and you plant some trees, they're not going to grow. There's just no moisture. So you can plant all the trees you want, but it's not going to affect the outcome of the descending air on these areas. But on the periphery, out in this transitional zone in the steppe, you can probably do a lot. I mean, we got places like Lake Chad, which isn't really a lake anymore. Like, this used to be all water 20 years ago. And Lake Chad is now just this tiny little blip right here. And, the people there are greatly affected by the desertification of this region. So yes and no. You can affect it if you do it in these hinterlands, these little transition zones between the desert and the rest of the continent. But I don't think you can do it by just direct planting in the desert itself. That's kind of like, drops in a dry bucket. So it's like dropping water into a pan that's sizzling at 500 degrees. So not going to do much. Okay. Oh, and just one more. Sorry, I forgot to thank you for finding out that information on ComputerShare. Thank you for finding that. Okay. William Morgan just types, "It's happening." Oh goodness, I haven't seen what's happening after hours here. I have no idea. Let me whip out my quick stock looker upper thing. No, it's just gone flat after hours. Never mind. Not too much happening. But, you know, metamaterial went back up to 333. Microsoft's been going bonkers recently. What's up with that? But AMC gained a lot. They gained 7% today. GME gained 3.5%. Metamaterials went up 16%. So, awesome. Fantastic. Yeah. Robin Hood, can you explain the concept of helium-3 fusion? Oh boy. All right. So, there is energy that goes into getting two things. Let me make Big Houston here so you can see my arms. There's energy that goes into making two nuclei attach to each other and form one nuclei, and there's energy that takes to break those things apart. Now, in both instances, and these calculations get really gnarly, depending on the size of the nucleus you're trying to break apart or form, can depend on how much excess energy comes out of the interaction. And the idea of cold fusion is that it takes less energy to put it together than it does for the energy that you get out of it. And so, like think inside a star like the sun, you've got a whole bunch of like hydrogen atoms that are smashing into each other at incredible rates of speed, and then they just finally stick together. And when they stick together, there's a nuclear explosion that happens, and all this radiation bursts out. And that radiation is what makes the sun so freaking hot. We're talking, you know, a nuclear bomb a second happening inside the sun for 10 billion years. And that heat, that energy, blasts outwards, creates radiation pressure, which causes the sun to kind of inflate in size, and then the radiation escapes, and then it warms us, and that's how we deal with the fusion happening inside the sun. It's been theorized for a long time that we could do fusion on a micro level with, you know, just a few collection of atoms, and if we had the right magnetic field, we could contain that energy and then send it out to places. And Lawrence Livermore Laboratory in 2014, they did a hydrogen pill cold fusion test, and they actually produced more energy than they put in. So they had this little pill of hydrogen, and they had 150 lasers, something like that, all focused on that pill, superheating it. So it went zap, and all the hydrogen went there and became helium, and fused, and just an explosion of energy came outwards. And they could measure how much energy the lasers took to superheat that pill, as well as the energy that came out of it. And so they're like, hey, we just did cold fusion for the first time. What they didn't manage to do was contain that reaction and store the energy, but the energy went blap. And so they actually produced more energy than they put in, which was a huge monumental achievement for humanity, basically. So with helium-3, I wonder if I can find a graph here. Let me see if I can find a graph, because I know I probably have one in a textbook somewhere or in a handout I got in my quantum class like 20 years ago. Let's see here. Fusion energy input output ratio. There we go. That's what I want. The fusion energy gain bar. Show it to me. Show it to me. Oh, you son of a bitch. You just give me the equation. All right. We'll just go to this. We'll go to... I got to turn off the Google Earth. There we go. Okay, so there are certain elements where when you smack them together and they fuse, they produce so much more energy than it took to put them together. So hydrogen is like the peak. It produces, I'll pull this number out of my butt, like 10 times the amount of energy as it took to smash them together. And as you get along the periodic table, that energy output drops off. And you get to uranium, and all of a sudden, the energy is negative, which is why heavy elements are only formed in the super hot explosions of supernova, because they're the only things hot enough to fuse all these things together. Let's see if we can find. Okay, so got the equations. Doesn't have the graph for me. Let's see here. Fusion energy gain. Let's do fusion energy gain graph. Here we go. This might be the stuff I'm looking for. Let's do images, see if a graph pops up. Boom. This is what I'm looking for. This is what we want. Okay. So hydrogen is the absolute tits when it comes to the amount of energy it takes to produce and the amount of energy you can get out of it. So, and helium-3 is number 2 on that list. The thing is that hydrogen is completely unstable. I mean, it wants to bond with anything. So you empty a bunch of hydrogen into the room, it's going to combine with all the oxygen, explode, and make a very, very hot bowl of water, basically. So it's very unstable to store that kind of hydrogen and to try and fuse it. So helium-3 is a noble gas. It doesn't want to bond with anything, but it doesn't take that much energy to smack them together and to make them form a heavier element. And the amount of energy you can get out of it is absolutely incredible. And you can see that like there's a spike in the amount of energy it takes to fuse things, and eventually get to uranium, and you just don't get much gains out of these things. So the moon is full of this helium-3 because it's a product of fusion that happens inside the sun. And helium-3 is an isotope, meaning it's got 2 protons, 1 neutron, rather than 2 protons and 2 neutrons. So it's atomic weight of 3. And it comes off from the solar winds from the sun constantly. And so when that helium hits our atmosphere, it bounces off and goes back into space because it's such a light material that it's not going to sink through the atmosphere and make it to the Earth's surface. Just like, you release a balloon, a child's balloon, it's going to float up and float up and float up till the balloon expands so much it explodes. The balloon will fall and the helium will keep going till it reaches the upper atmosphere and then get blown away by the solar winds. It'll just leave the Earth entirely. But on the moon has no atmosphere. So the helium-3 hits the dust of the moon, and because it's got a charge to it, statically bonds to the dust and stays forever. So the moon has like 4.5 billion years of helium-3 hitting the dust and sticking like a sock out of the dryer. And so we can go to the moon, give that dust a good shake, and the helium-3 will release, and we can capture it, and then we can use it to do our bitchin' fusion. So there, that's the best layman's term I can give you without having to give you like quantum equations for helium-3. That's the future. There's going to be some nerd in a lab coat smacking helium-3 into each other, and you can drive your Tesla that way. Yeah. All right. Okay. So that was Nick Callis' Sahara question. Let's see if I missed any good ones here. CT Moon, the debt clock shows we are over the debt ceiling. Does that spell crisis? Possibly. I think right now what the Treasury is doing is they're taking like whatever tax money is trickling in, and they're paying off interest on bonds, and they aren't really focused on paying too much of other things. They got a few weeks until they run out of cash on hand. That's yeah, I think we got maybe a month, maybe a little more left to that little chump change that we're throwing at our interest right now on our debt. So yeah, that's I think the fact that in the news, if they were to broadcast the news that the debt clock shows us being past the debt ceiling, might trigger some investor panic in the blue chips and the S&P 500 and with bonds. So, you'll notice like the only news I can find on the debt ceiling is about once a week, The Hill will make an article about it. And that's it. Everyone else isn't talking about it. So I'm waiting for like NBC News to, Lester Holt talks about the debt ceiling for 2 minutes. And then all of a sudden that will be, that will be what I think triggers the market to start to tremble. Robert Johnson, Mr. Wade, I would love to have one-on-one talk with you on the phone. Sure. Send me a DM on Twitter. That's the best way to get a hold of me for things like that. Send me a DM, and I try my best to answer all my DMs that way. Okay. Lou Sadu, Houston, what do you think about the military-industrial complex coming to an end and turning into a medical industry complex for the next 50 or so years, potentially until the next pivot? I don't know if we're ever going to stop making a whole bunch of guns and planes and bombs. It's like, if you make stuff that blows up, once you blow it up, you got to buy more. It's a never-ending cycle. I mean, the soldiers need a bunch of bullets to shoot, so you got to keep making bullets. Our supply of cruise missiles gets too great. We have to start launching more cruise missiles to order more. So we'll blow up some runways in Syria or whatever. I don't know. I don't know if the military-industrial complex will ever not have the huge amounts of power that they have right now. The military budget's almost $1 trillion a year now, and we only have so many. How many people in the military now? 2 million, including reserves. How many active duty military U.S.? 1.4 million. Okay, calculator time. Gotta go to there. Gotta go to take Chrome off. Boink. There's a calculator. Okay, so we got 1.4 million service members. Oops, that's a terrible way of doing that. 1,400,000 service members, right? Okay. Most of those guys are enlisted, and enlisted people make dick. There's, officers will make more money. Up to generals make like $200,000 a year. But let's just say the average pay across the board for members of the military is $50,000. So, $50,000. We are at $70 billion is how much it costs to pay the members of the military to do the military thing. That means there's another, $830 billion spent on the military that has nothing to do with the personnel of the military. This is contractors for construction. This is logistics people. This is contracts for food services. This is buying planes and bombs and guns and submarines and new aircraft carriers and satellite systems and, computer server farms and spy networks and black ops and, underground alien bunkers and DARPA and everything else. So the people in the military make less than 10% of what the military budget is allotted, which is pretty ridiculous. The military budget, I think, was $956 billion or something this year for the U.S. military, which, if you guys have read the news, is like more than the next 7 militaries combined spend on the military. It's pretty ridiculous. We'll build a fighter jet for like $1 billion, and the Chinese will build one just as good for like $10 million. So there's a whole bunch of inflation in the military budget that is pretty ridiculous. And those of you who have worked with government contractors know that they will never deliver on time. They'll never deliver what they promised. They will have all sorts of cost overruns and every excuse possible. Like, wasn't the F-22 the one that couldn't even fly in the rain? Like, what? You're making a jet that has to pass through clouds, and if you do that, it will fall out of the sky. What a stupid design is that? Like, who approved that? It's absolutely asinine. We've been making planes fly through clouds for years, and now all of a sudden the most technologically advanced airplane in the entire universe can't fly through a cloud, or else it'll fall out of the sky. That is bonkers. That just shows you how powerful the military-industrial complex is. And the weird thing is that buying new stuff has gotten so expensive that to save money, we're still flying B-52 bombers that are like 70 years old, right? And they're planning on flying those B-52 bombers for another 30 to 50 years to do most of the bombing campaign. So with the technology we designed like 70 years ago is still good enough now. You get into a B-52 cockpit, there's a window above your head that was designed for the navigator to use a sextant to figure out where the hell they were, right? And that's how old these things are. Can you imagine like the U.S. Navy still like doing ironclad wood sailing ships for all their campaigns because it was just too expensive to build a new ship? It's nuts. Because any bomber they build as a replacement for the B-52 costs billions and billions and billions of dollars. So it's the military-industrial complex is nuts, and so we're spending a whole bunch of money on contractors to keep these like old hunks of junk flying. Essentially, we are rebuilding every B-52 every couple of years from scratch, kind of like we did with the space shuttle after each launch, and that's just bonkers because it's cheaper to do that than it is to like actually produce something new. Apparently, I mean, why don't they just build new B-52s with just upgraded avionics or something? I don't know. That's crazy. It blows my mind. Okay, Kyle Banta. Greetings, Houston. What's the latest news on metamaterial? Also, what's the minimum MOAS target considered for GME sales? I've answered this one a few times. Metamaterial is in this weird limbo where their merger with Torchlight completed, but Torchlight shares were still trading a whole bunch. And apparently Canadian metamaterial shares were also trading a whole bunch. So these failure to delivers were compounding, but there was nothing forcing them to close because the shares kept trading for like 30 days after the merger. Then there was some sort of filing that the metamaterials did, which is kind of like finalizes the merger and then like deletes all these things from existence. Plus the preferred shares people got as like the placeholder for the dividend for Torchlight. A bunch of them are getting weird assigned values, and it looks like they're trading. So there's a guy that sent me pictures from his account that his preferred shares of Torchlight became metamaterial A shares and had a value of like $33. Just the weirdest stuff, man. I don't know what's going on with it. In this market, when you can't explain what's going on and what's weird, that tells me that the hedge funds are up to no good and that they're going to owe a bunch of money in the end. Because everyone's in the buy and hold mode. Like, I'm going to buy that. I'm going to hold it. Screw you, Plotkin. And so, yeah, I fully expect that there's going to be some sort of metamaterials buying spree that these hedge funds or whoever's holding the bag for them are forced to do. We saw it with we saw it with Newegg a period of time after their merger, and the price shot to like $77. So it's happening. And the minimum price for GME, I have a ladder climbing idea here, so I'll bring up the calculator again. Calculator. So I said my plan is to sell share number 1 at $100,000. And because I'm in a brokerage that only lets me set a limit order for 50% more than what the current market price is, I sell share number 1 at $100,000. Next share I sell at 1.5 times that. So next share sells for $150,000. The third share sells for 50% more than that, so $225,000. Fourth share, $337,500. Fifth share, $506,250. Sixth share, $759,000, $375,000. Seventh, we're at over $1 million a share. Eighth, 1.7. Ninth, 2.5. 10th, 3.8. 11th, 5.7. 12th, 8.6. 13th, I'm at 12.9. So I'm almost $13 million by the 13th share. Not bad. So when you start to get to these ridiculous price levels, who knows if this will be the peak? But I'm at so few shares because I only spent like $2,000 on my shares back in February. That what I have left, I can sell at this price, and my grandkids, can be the snootiest, meanest, snobbiest, most spoiled assholes in the entire world. with that kind of money. So, my goal is to climb the ladder until I get to a point where the share is so absolutely ridiculous that, if it goes higher than that, awesome. If it doesn't, I can unload what few shares I have left and be totally happy. If I get to the 1.3, I'm already retired. What I have right there is enough for me to retire after 7 shares, and never have to worry about working again. So all of this is icing on the cake, and you can keep going and going and going. And I doubt that. Whoops. Some reason I got 2 trillions there. Let's go back to. Okay, so that's 2 shares, 3 shares, 4 shares, 5 shares, 6 shares, 7 shares, 8 shares, 9 shares, 10 shares, 11 shares, 12 shares, 13 shares, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, and so on. So if you do the one share at a time and you set your limit orders at 25% or 50%, that sucker will climb that ladder super fast without flooding the market with millions and millions and millions of shares, reducing the buy pressure. So that's my strategy, and do that until you feel like the buy pressure might be over, and then maybe dump the rest of them and never have to think about the stock market ever again. Just live in a pile of money and enjoy whatever it is you want to do. Yeah. Okay. J-Dog asks, will Mars be terraformed for human cities? 9. Let me pull up Martian atmosphere. Okay, I'm going to go to that. We're going to go to the Chrome. Okay, the Martian atmosphere. 95% carbon dioxide, 3% nitrogen, 1.6% argon, and then there's a little bit, just a teeny tiny, itty bitty little bit of oxygen in there. Okay, so Venus and Mars have really similar atmospheric content. Venus has more water vapor and sulfuric acid and stuff. But as far as the portion of this carbon dioxide, they're very similar. Now, the Earth, if we boiled off the oceans of the Earth, and actually just cooked the Earth and all the oceans boiled off, we'd release a boatload of CO2, and the Earth's atmosphere would be 95% carbon dioxide, like that. So the Earth, the only reason the Earth isn't 95% carbon dioxide is that we were able to store a whole bunch of carbon in the oceans and eventually bury it inside the Earth in the form of oil and limestone and things like that. So Mars has a very, very thin atmosphere. The thickness of its atmosphere is the equivalent of our atmosphere at about 100,000 feet. And at 100,000 feet, that's like where the SR-71 flies. And that is essentially outer space. Like you have to wear a spacesuit if you're going to be an SR-71 jet flying at 3,000 miles an hour, 100,000 feet up. You would not survive. And the only thing keeping the Martian surface somewhat warm, I think the warmest temperature I've recorded is about 70 degrees Fahrenheit near the Martian equator. And that is that little bit of carbon dioxide that's in the atmosphere, or the little bit, sorry, I just said the 95% of the atmosphere that's carbon dioxide is the only thing keeping it somewhat warm. It's a little bit of an insulator. Now, if we terraform Mars, we will have to pull the CO2, the carbon out of that and release oxygen. Oxygen has no insulating ability. If the Earth didn't have any carbon dioxide in the atmosphere and we were just nitrogen and oxygen, we would be 18 degrees Fahrenheit during the daytime and a minus 170 degrees Fahrenheit at night. So Mars will instantly plunge into just an ice ball. Well, there's not really much moisture, so we couldn't have that, but it'll be freezing. It'll be absolutely freezing, and the atmosphere would go from the thickness of the Earth that's 100,000 feet to 30% even more thin than it is now. So it'd be even harder for us to have any sort of cushion in the atmosphere. Now, we might be able to do things. We might be able to take, someday gather up 1,000 comets or something and just smash the surface of Mars with it and make some sort of atmosphere and ocean with all those comets exploding into Mars. But right now, the Martian surface and the Martian atmosphere are so thin that it's going to be really hard to make any meaningful terraforming of Mars. we'll basically have to have bubble cities. One of the things that oh, sorry, I'm getting this warning saying YouTube is not receiving enough. It's apparently my internet is sucking at the moment. I'm so sorry. Let's see if we can go back to Big Houston. Apparently, what was I gonna say? My brain just lost because I got that warning saying that video isn't working anymore. So one thing we'll have to do with the Martian surface is the soil is full of this chemical called perchlorate, and perchlorate is highly toxic to humans. And we're talking like 24 parts per billion can kill you, and 1% of the Martian soil is perchlorate. Now on Earth, we've got anaerobic bacteria that eat this stuff, go nom 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 nom, and turn those perchlorates into chlorides, which are much more sustainable for humans. Like we won't be dying from those chlorides. And so one thing we may have to do on Mars, we may have to just make it rain anaerobic bacteria all over the surface of Mars so that it starts gobbling up that perchlorate. Because if you make a mission to Mars and any dust gets on you, you're going to die. Because there's so much perchlorate in that dust. If you breathe it in, swallow it, whatever, get it through your sweat glands, your entire thyroid system is going to shut off and you'll have no immune system whatsoever. So any infection is going to kill you. You're just a dead person. You get a cold, dead. You get the flu, dead. You get, I don't know, anything else, you're a dead person. So I think step one in any attempt to terraform Mars is to get anaerobic bacteria to eat up all of the perchlorates and then go from there. If you're going to terraform via smacking comets into Mars, it's going to be a while before you can be on the surface, because you're going to be throwing comets at this thing, and there's no way to like gently set down a 6-mile wide comet onto the surface of Mars. You're going to have to do it the old-fashioned way, which is just like poo, and just make explosions happen, which is going to make it rain dust for a long time, and the surface will become an ice sheet. But if you hit enough of it, maybe you'll warm up the iron core in Mars, and you'll get some volcanic action, and you'll start pumping out more atmosphere. It will probably be a several century process to get it going, but realistically, with technology we have, no, we're not going to be terraforming Mars any soon. There. Sorry, J-Dog. I'm going to disappoint you, and I'm going to disappoint Elon Musk with that assessment. Okay. CT Moon, my question needs an answer. Let's see what CT Moon asked. I have no idea. Oh, it's a debt ceiling one. Okay. Yeah. Congress is in recess until after Labor Day, so there's not going to be any discussions at all about the debt ceiling, and it should be a catalyst for downward volatility in the market for sure. Like the fact that people are pumping blue chips and bank stocks right now does not make any sense. The banks are announcing that they have no money, that they have to sell a whole bunch of bonds to get money. The fundamental asset that gives anybody credence for collateral is treasury bonds, and those can take a giant hit if we lose credit rating or if the U.S. government defaults one of our payments. That will be an absolute disaster. The entire market will just bronk instantly if the U.S. defaults on any payments for our bonds. Legacy 10 Productions. Hi, Houston. If you want to move back up to Pacific Northwest after MOAS and decide to move to Bainbridge, where are the best places to live on the island? Go Mariners. Oh, man, everywhere in Bainbridge is awesome. Scene. Google Earth. Go to the Earth. Go to my home. Go to my home. Picture yourself. Zoom in. All right, so here's my home, Bainbridge. It is not cheap to live here. That's why I have roommates. It's bedroom community for Seattle. It's a ferry boat that goes back and forth, and so doctors, lawyers, Amazon people, they all head back and forth to Seattle this way. The schools are fantastic. The high school here has an electron microscope. I don't know how many high schools have electron microscopes, but my high school does. Rich people like to live on the water because you get nice views of the city or nice views of the mountain. Get south facing, like really, really, really rich people. They live in the country club here, which is the first golf course built in Washington. This is like Weyerhaeuser money, big time old school timber baron money live here. And Beans Bite on the South Beach area. These homes, I mean, well, let's Zillow this bitch. Let's see what these suckers are worth, because I haven't looked at them in a while. I gotta turn you off. Gotta go back to Martian. Let's go to Zillow and see what's happening. Bam. Yeah, whatever. Go away. Search. Yeah, for sale. Okay. So give me the island. There she is. All right. So I don't look if there's any places for sale here right now. Oh, Beans Bite. So this one you got views of downtown Seattle and views of Mount Rainier, and you're south facing, so they're very desirable for people who like pretty views. Yeah, 6 million, 4 million, 7 million. And the crazy thing is there's 9 million. Let's click on that bad boy. 4 bedroom, 7,000 square feet. That's nuts. Let's see here. Let's see. Because there's also a crazy thing that happens here with the assessors, county assessors, is that they pay like a fraction of the home's value in taxes. So if you have like a middle class home that's worth $300,000, you'll get assessed at $300,000, and you'll pay taxes on a home that's worth $300,000. If you got a $9 million home that recently sold for $7.6 million earlier in the year, you're probably paying taxes on something a fraction of that. So let's see more facts and features. Where is property details, HOA, services, tax history? Here we go. Sold, assessed at $6 million. So it's assessed at less than, it's actually pretty higher than they usually do on most of these luxury homes. So it's assessed at much less than what like the home gets sold for or is actually worth. But these, if you're a rich, fat cat, you're gonna live somewhere down here. But there's also like really nice places that, I think the average home price here is probably approaching $1 million. Yeah, these are lots that are 250, lots that are 350. How big is this lot? Like less than an acre? Give me the details. Give me the details. Why don't you give me any details? Why no details? Why don't you tell me what it is? It's like a little treed lot. You might have a view from there. That'd be nice. Oh, 1.3 acres. Sorry. So it's about an acre. That's probably a screaming deal right now in this market. But you're not going to get like a home for cheap. I mean, the cheapest homes are probably like $650. That's probably as cheap as it gets. I don't see anything else. So yeah, you definitely need MOAS tendies to buy a home here. It's ridiculous. Amazon has, it wasn't that cheap to live here to begin with, but Amazon has made it just ridiculously expensive. I was renting a place for like $1,200 a month, and my landlord was 900 million years old, and so he didn't know anything about Craigslist or Rent.com or anything else. He would just put a sign on the building that was for rent, and I called him up, and it was $1,200 a month for a 2-bedroom, which, the rest of the country, that's kind of pricey. Well, he passed away. His son got the property, remodeled it, and rented it for $4,000 a month. Kicked me out and rented it for $4,000 a month. So for a 2-bedroom, and that's some Amazon hire, computer engineer who's making $20,000 a month. $4,000 a month is nothing. Like, yeah, whatever, okay, and they're happy. Yeah, that's where we are. Cosmic deception. What do you think is going on in Antarctica? According to witness testimony, former Navy officer Operation High Jump ended in total failure due to being overrun by UFOs. I have no idea. Admiral Beard. Are you sure this isn't like the plot to a movie? Wasn't this the X-Files movie plot? I'll have to look up, what was it? Operation High Jump? Jump Antarctica. And Admiral Beard. I just watched that Netflix UFO documentary. Didn't hear anything about that mentioned in that one. So I'm gonna have to go down some sort of YouTube rabbit hole there. All right. Hey, Boss Blunts is in here. Thanks, man. Welcome. Awesome. Yay. Welcome, bud. Big fan of Halifax, Nova Scotia. Any geofacts? Let's go to the Google Earth. And my video is still terrible. I'm so sorry. So I'm gonna try and not screw up, or at least point to Bay of Fundy a little bit more. Scene. Google Earth. Oops, I got to click on Google Earth on my actual screen. There we go. All right. So when you get to the pole, like higher latitudes, the tides fluctuate a lot more than they do at lower latitudes. Like in Hawaii, the tide's like a foot or two. Here in the Seattle area, in the Puget Sound, the tide can be like a 12-foot swing. But if we get to the Bay of Fundy, let's see here. Let me, before I screw this up. Go somewhere, do your thing. There you go. So the Bay of Fundy, get to the Bay of Fundy. This bay here has like, I don't know, is it 40-foot tide swing? So every 6 hours, the water is flooding in and out 40 feet. And so through these areas, the water can just be like crazy fast rushing. The Halifax is on this side over here. So the water can just come flowing through here at just absolutely incredible rates, and during each tide swing. And you can go on YouTube and like see videos of these boats are sitting at the water and just and they like disappear out of frame because they're laying in the mud 50 feet down. So the tide swings are just bonkers in this area. So that's the coolest geologic thing I think happening in Nova Scotia there. I had friends. One was she was Canadian. He was an officer in the Coast Guard, and they were stationed here in the Northwest. But her family home was on the Bay of Fundy, and it actually had a marker in her yard because it was the site where the French Acadians got kicked out of Canada and ended up having to go down to Louisiana, which Monkey Butt, my dog, is a product of the French Acadians, because Catahoulas were a mixture between the greyhounds the French Acadians had and red wolves that the natives had. They mixed those two together and made a Catahoula. So that's how Monkey Butts got formed. So yeah, that's something to look at. Outside of that, I don't know what other geologic features I can talk about with Nova Scotia, because I'm not too familiar. It is still a good chunk of the Canadian Shield, I believe, so the rock is fairly old in here, like hundreds of millions, if not billions of years old. Most of the ancient rock is out here in like northern Ontario. This part of the Canadian Shield is like 3 billion years old, some of the oldest rock on Earth. But I'll have to do some more research into Nova Scotia there. My brother works a job and he's out in Halifax a lot. Maybe I'll give him something interesting to look at there. All right. So apparently there's great surf out here, my brother says. There's a point break he goes to that is, I believe, right here, maybe right here, and you get waves from like 3 directions, so it's always breaking. It's just miserably cold. All right, I'm still getting the warning that my video is terrible. Sorry, my internet is garbage right now. I don't know how to fix this. I'm sorry. Did I miss any other super chats in there? That was Kyle Bantas, got that one. Matt Newton, Houston, what's your take on ivermectin to end the pandemic instead of experimental vaccines? Ivermectin right now is poisoning people. People are taking like large doses of it that are meant for cattle and for sheep and goats and stuff. Don't go to the feed store and start ivermectin. And Merck, the manufacturer of ivermectin, produced a warning this week saying, do not take it. The science is not promising. It's not preventing infections. It's not tapering infections. Do not take it. And when you have Big Pharma telling you not to take their product, they definitely don't want a bunch of lawsuits associated with people dying from that. Let's see if I can find the Merck warns ivermectin. Here we go. Whoops. That is... No, that's an old one. The FDA is warning against it as well. Yeah, so Merck was like, don't take it. If a doctor wants to prescribe dewormer meant for cattle for a human being, they will definitely prescribe it, but you should not go out and self-medicate with this stuff. You'll notice that the places that have the highest use of ivermectin from feed stores are the places that have the highest rates of COVID right now. Just wear a mask, get vaccinated, go from there. Yeah, I'm sure that there's experiments running right now with clinical trials, and we'll get results of that. But until then, don't self-medicate with those things. You're not going to do it right, and you're going to overdose on something meant for a sheep, and you don't want to do that. Okay. Chris Lindley would love to hear your Sears thesis in detail. Can't find any DD on it. Okay, I'm going to put Get It Got in here. Get It Got. So I just put in the chat. Get It Got is your Sears info person. He's the one that's done most of DT, or at least assembled it on Sears. But basically the idea is Sears owns, billions and billions and billions of dollars in real estate still. And they're in bankruptcy. So they owe creditors a few $1 billion. And then when they pay off those creditors, they're probably going to get liquidated and forced to give a special dividend to the stockholders after that. And the estimate is that every share of Sears stock will be worth about $17 in dividend when the time comes. So that's basically the math that was done by Get It Got and others to find that. So the chief shareholder and CEO of Sears hasn't sold a single share because I think he knows just how much those real estate assets and other things are worth, and he's just sitting and waiting for bankruptcy court to finalize like what's owed here and manage some receiver manage the liquidation of everything. So that's the basic thesis behind the Sears play. And so I threw a few $100 at it, seeing if that does anything. We'll see. All right. Okay. Stonk Guru, yes, I own AMC. I don't have, my position isn't as large as it is in like GameStop, but yeah. So any price that AMC goes to is icing on the cake for me. I'll be excited if it hits 5 figures and be stoked at that. Okay. Normal Amin. Hi, Wade. I'm planning on starting a company to make cement using CO2. Would you like to hear your thoughts about it? I was reading something about carbon neutral cement being a thing, because right now cement production produces a boatload of CO2. You have to burn coal to do it. The process of mixing it releases a bunch of CO2. But there is a new technology out there for like making CO2 that I guess sucks CO2 out, making cement that sucks CO2 out of the air. So yeah, send me a DM about it. I'd love to hear about the technology more. Pakaj Kumar, hi Houston, nice show. Where should I put my 401k next 6 months so I can reduce the MOAS impact? I know all Vanguard retirement fund bond would go down around MOAS, not financial advice. They'll go back up again. So like whatever you have invested in mutual funds and normal retirement accounts, yeah, it'll go down, but a few months later, it'll be right back up to where it was and cruising right along. So I'm not too worried about that stuff. Back in the day when people would panic sell, they would sell, have to pay their broker a commission, and then they would hopefully buy back in when it's cheap and pay their broker a commission again. And what it ended up doing was just absolutely would be the same as if they'd never sold in the first place, which is a big pain in the ass for everyone. So with those long-term plays, your Vanguard funds, stuff like that, they just ignore it and buy more when the dip happens. That's kind of the easiest play you can make with those because they'll go right back up again. I mean, remember the Dow went down to like 6,000 by March of 2009, and everyone's like, "Oh no, my 401ks," and now it's at 35,000. It's fine. It goes right back up again. It just marches on as time goes on with little hiccups in between. Okay. All right. Let's Yeah, the live stream with Jackson, and I see Marcel here in the chat, and Jamie was super fun. I love being able to like actually talk with human beings face to face. It is wonderful, and I'm looking forward. I'm gonna do when I go to Hawaii for my friend's wedding here in a couple weeks. I'm gonna do some shows with friends of mine, and it's gonna be fun because we'll have lots of goofy stories to tell, and I'll be in my element. I'll actually be in the same room with people talking to them. It's gonna be so much fun. I'm looking forward to it so much. Just to give my friends big hugs and have a good time in Hawaii. So the Hawaii shows should be good. I'm can also try and do some recorded stuff where like if hopefully there's a lava flow breaking out and we can go poke some lava with a stick and do some on the ground like geology and astronomy. I think the telescopes are going to be not accessible. I think they're closed off to the public right now. And I doubt the visitor center is open, so I wouldn't be able to volunteer and get use of some of the telescopes up there because of COVID, which is kind of lame. So, yeah, that's well, we'll see what I can do in those 2 weeks, or you just might get me just absolutely sunburned to shit on a beach, staring off into space, enjoying some hotel's Wi-Fi. Yeah, there we go. All right. Yeah, Marcel, I know you're Midwest. Like, what I pay in rent would probably buy the biggest mansion where you are right now. Yeah, the homes out here are ridiculous, and they're not even as ridiculous as like San Francisco can be. So it's the prices are nuts. Okay, Josh Walker. Hey, Houston, Post MOAS was the first new tool you buy for your garage. I'm picking up a planer. I've got a planer. Man, first tool. I might go really out there and get a hydraulic lift so I can lift cars up. But the problem is that the ceiling in my garage is only about 8 feet high. So I'm going to have to build a whole new garage that's high enough for me to lift a car so I can get under it and work on it. That would probably be a MOAS present for myself, is a much bigger garage, because my garage is so teeny tiny. It's a one-car garage with a little bit of storage, and having to have like, you know, a giant chop saw, a table saw, planer, lathe, and my metal setup for melting metals and and plus I got all my mining gear, dredges, camping equipment, shovels, sluice boxes, metal detectors, igloo, coolers, tarps, tents, you name it. It's just packed in there. So yeah, a new garage probably the first tool to buy. All right. Matt Newton says, check out Tess Laurie, Oracle Films. It's on YouTube. Okay, Tess Laurie. Put that on the list. Tess, how you spell it? Lwrie. Oracle Films. Okay, Tess Laurie. I'll look that up, Matt. Some viewing pleasure for later this evening. What time we got? 2:26. I got like 15 minutes, and then I got to run out of here. So let's see what other fun chit chats you got going here. That was. Yeah. Jackson Hunter's a great host for a show too. He does a great job, like, you know, get the topic rolling. He keeps things organized. He's a good dude. I was supposed to go meet him in person and hang out with him on my road trip when my truck broke down, so I never actually made it to LA to say hi. So I do have to make an LA trip, and we'll hang out in person one of these days. Yeah. Looks like my video is back. Oh, there we go. Excellent. I no longer have the giant yellow warning go across my screen. Comcast, you suck so much. Okay. Favorite fossil would have to be an iridescent amylite, which I included a big 700 carat one. No, it was 1400 carat one, I believe, in my treasure that got found in 47 hours after I did my treasure hunt. I'll show you. Amylite, do iridescent. I can't spell iridescent. Ammonite. Oh, ammonite. Okay, forgot to share screen. Scene. Chrome. Whoops, Chrome. Take Google Earth off of there. There we go. So you're just ammonites and ammonites. They're gorgeous. So they get some opalization effect when they fossilize, and they like those cool beetle wings. They'll iridesce. See if we got any cool video of them. At least we can show. Here's a big one. All right, let's play that sucker. Wait, why aren't you playing? Show me the video, you monster. Okay, but these things, they look like space aliens, right? That did not play video in any way, shape, or form. Here we go. Maybe just give me like a YouTube one. There we go. Give me that. Why don't you play? Why didn't you play? There it is. So they're really cool looking. They're basically big giant old snail shell looking things, and when they fossilize, they get this iridescence on them, and they're absolutely gorgeous. That might be my favorite fossil. There's huge ones that you can find in like the plains of Texas, and they're absolutely gigantic, but they don't have the iridescence in them. The iridescent ones only happen in fossils found in northern Montana and southern Alberta, in the Rocky Mountains there. So like the Belt Supergroup and places in there is the only places you can find these things. They're a few 100 million years old. They're rad. They're the coolest fossils there are. Just because I like pretty colors, as you can tell. I don't know. I like bright, shiny objects. I'm like a bird of paradise that way. And there's cool fossils. You know, I would love to have a saber-toothed tiger skull. That would be probably a bucket list item for me, just to be able to have a saber-toothed tiger skull on a shelf and be like, that's mine. I have that saber-toothed tiger skull. But most of the places you can go find them, you aren't allowed to pick them up because of Antiquities Act laws, and I don't have permission. So no saber-toothed tiger skull for me unless I want to go to prison. Okay. Robot Johnson, thank you for the super chat there. Much appreciated. Stanley Belaski, are you scared of Mount St. Helens erupting again in the near future? Or the big earthquake scientists say is due? The earthquake is much more terrifying than Mount St. Helens. Mount St. Helens is out kind of in the hinterlands. Let's go back to what we do best, which is the Google Earth. All right. Da-da-da. Let's leave the East Coast here and head to the West Coast. Da-da-da-da-da. And zooming in. Okay, so here we have the Pacific Northwest Cascade Mountain Range. Goes from southern Canada down to northern California, Mount Shasta, and Mount Lassen as well. Mount Lassen. And this volcanic range is a result of the Juan de Fuca plate, which is this little tiny oceanic plate right here, diving underneath. It's diving down underneath the North American plate. And as it gets pulled down, the rock heats up, turns to magma, and the magma escapes through the volcano. So it makes a little volcano range here. And this volcano range is similar to volcano ranges we see in the Andes, where the Pacific plate is diving underneath South America. Similar to Japan, where the Pacific plate is diving underneath the Asian plate. Similar to Indonesia, where the Indian Ocean plate is diving underneath Asia as well. So you get these volcanoes popping up wherever these plates are diving underneath. The Pacific plate is diving underneath Russia here and making volcanoes. Diving underneath the North American plate, making volcanoes in the Aleutian chain in Alaska, and so on. All right, gotta get my north bearings here. Zoom back in. And in the Northwest, in Washington State, we've got several big volcanoes. Oregon has a whole bunch as well. But in the Northwest, the big ones are Mount Baker, Glacier Peak, was it Stearns Mountain, Mount Rainier, Mount St Helens, Mount Adams. So these mountains are the big ones. Mount Rainier is the one, and Mount Baker you have to worry about too, but Mount Rainier is the big one you have to worry about. Mount St Helens, when it had its eruption, the north side of the mountain basically was a giant landslide from an earthquake. The landslide gave way and opened up the magma chamber. The thing just exploded in this giant pyroclastic explosion. And it was the largest landslide in human history, the recorded history, I should say. We've never seen a larger landslide than this half of the mountain sliding away, magma chamber being exposed, and the mountain erupting. So the blast went north, but it went north and basically wiped out about 200 square miles north of the mountain. But because the prevailing winds are from the Pacific, the wind blew this way and just covered places like Yakima, Tri-Cities, and Spokane with ash. And the ash never really came north and never blew into the Puget Sound area. The other thing about Mount St. Helens is that the areas surrounding it aren't particularly populated. We have a few little towns, Castle Rock, Longview, places like that. And the Tootle River, some people say, filled with a whole bunch of lahar, like mud and ash that flowed downhill really fast. And those things hurt people downstream. But this area really is not that populated. So the towns of Morton, Glenoma, and Randall, these are tiny little towns, easy to evacuate. They really didn't have much fallout from the eruption itself. But Mount Rainier here is gnarly. There's a whole bunch of river systems that go off in all sorts of different directions, and all of them flow into the Puget Sound. And they pass through, Seattle. They pass through Tacoma. They pass through South Lakewood, Spanaway, the Fort Lewis McChord military base. And so they actually have air raid sirens for these places in Graham, Yelm, Lakewood, Puyallup, places like that, for if Mount Rainier ever erupts, they can evacuate people to higher grounds, because some of the lahars that flow through here, because the glaciers will just instantly melt and flood the area. You'll have like 60-foot walls of water that flood down these valleys, and will just wipe out everything in its path. So they've got evacuation plans for if Mount Rainier erupts, to get people to higher ground to avoid being absolutely just buried in mud. The lahars from these things are what kill the most people, and pyroclastic explosions would be a close second after that if you're close by. But essentially, the city of Tacoma is basically built in the floodplain of the lahars of Mount Rainier. All of the soil that was fertile here, that was farmed back in the day, came from mud that flowed off of Mount Rainier. So Mount Rainier is a big boy. It's 14,000 feet tall. It hasn't had a big eruption for quite some time, but the oral history of the native peoples talked about how thousands of years ago, Mount Rainier and Mount Adams were fighting over Mount St. Helens, and everyone was just erupting like crazy. My guess is that it's going to take a big subduction zone quake. So we're going to have a big bunch of movement from this plate diving underneath North America to kind of recharge the material that's deep down by the mantle, that's melting and bringing up the magma that produces these volcanoes. Because the only thing that's been active recently is Mount St. Helens, and then I think Lassen had an eruption in like 1909, but everything else has been pretty quiet. There was a scare in the 70s that Mount Baker was going to erupt because there was an inflation of magma in the magma chamber, and a whole bunch more steam started coming off, but that never erupted. The Three Sisters down here in Oregon, these ladies, this represents one magma chamber complex, and they've been inflating quite a bit for the last decade or so, but they really haven't seen any much more activity happening in them. So who knows if and when they'll finally have their big eruption. But Mount Rainier is the one to watch out for. The rest of the volcanoes in the Cascade chain, not as much. There will be a bunch of lahars off Mount Baker when it goes. But the earthquake's the one you have to watch out for. The subduction zone earthquake will last probably 5 to 10 minutes. be in the 9.0 range and will absolutely devastate the coast. But luckily, the coast along the northwest isn't too populated, and there's lots of high ground they can run to. The earthquakes in Seattle we really have to watch out for will be local surface faults, like the Seattle fault that runs under my home of Bainbridge, under Seattle and out to the Cascades. This last time this fault had an earthquake 900 years ago, produced tsunamis up and down the Puget Sound, and probably would just destroy like 90% of the infrastructure in Seattle. It'll be nuts. Those are the ones to watch out for. Okay. Getting text messages. Hopefully it's not people telling me that I was doing stuff wrong, because sometimes it happens. All right. Okay. There we go. All right. Cool. Let's see here. We got, 10 minutes left that I can chit chat with you before I have to run? Yeah, Marcel, I would love to be on Jeopardy. I need to take the Jeopardy test again. It's been a while since I took it. I need to do that. Edward Conkle, what do you think about nuclear diamond batteries and nuclear voltaic batteries that never need a charge, are safe, and will last 28,000 years? We use them. Not necessarily ones made of diamond, but we have essentially, we make this ceramic material out of uranium, and those are what the batteries that we use for deep spacecraft and for other long-term objects that might not get solar radiation to recharge. So I can't remember the exact science behind it, but they have like an 88-year half-life, and what they do is they produce heat, and that heat gets captured by Stirling engines or something else, and then turned into electricity to power them. So like the Voyager spacecraft have nuclear batteries, and they're these ceramic things full of radioactive material. And the reason why they make them ceramic is that if there's a launch and they explode, it's not going to be detrimental. It's not going to spread radiation everywhere like a liquid fuel would, or a solid like uranium fuel would. So they make this crazy ceramic. And then the heat it gives off also keeps all of the electronics warm, so they don't get so cold they don't work anymore. So there are radioactive batteries out there that can produce enough energy for these spacecraft that go out. Would I want to be near one and hold it? No. Whenever you're dealing with these nuclear things, they just, they like to give off lots of neutrons and helium atoms and other radiation that likes to poke your DNA and change it. So I'm sure there's large batteries. I don't know about nuclear diamond batteries. I haven't heard of those before, so I'll have to do some research on that. But they're great for deep spacecraft because they'll last for hundreds of years and keep electronics warm, and won't cause too much damage if they explode on a rocket on their way to space. Okay. Ooh, searching for shark teeth. That's a good menu. I would love to. I don't have any shark teeth. I would love to have one. My dentist when I was a kid, Dr. Sally, she had a great white jaw that was like, I don't know, 5 feet across up on a mantle. That was pretty awesome. Boozy Houston, will you please explain to us again why AMC will squeeze and what you might think September will be like for the hedge funds? I get a sense of comfort when you explain these type of things. Let me sit down. I'm going to tell you a bedtime story. AMC and GME and all these other meme stocks, the reason why they're a play for a squeeze is that we own the stock and we own all the synthetics, and eventually someone's going to want to get paid, and they're going to force the hedge funds to close their positions on these stocks because they want their money, they want their stuff back, and if they're forced to close positions on these stocks, they have to buy back our shares. And if we don't want to sell our shares, the price goes up because supply and demand. And when you short a stock, you have infinite risk that you will have to pay through the nose should that stock go upwards. And right now, the stock is what, 200% the price of what they shorted it at. Where for GameStop, it's probably 500%, 1,000% the price that they shorted. So they're already on the hook for billions and billions and billions and billions of dollars, if not trillions. And the minute they try to buy this stuff back and we don't want to sell, we'll force the bid price to get higher and higher and higher and higher and higher until eventually someone's like, yeah, $80,000 a share is fine. And they'll start selling the first shares. And other people are like, $80,000 is enough for me. I want $1 million. I want $2 million. I want $10 million. And the price will get higher and higher and higher and higher and higher and higher until eventually it gets so high, people are like, you know what? I can now become a Bond villain, sell. And that's how the greatest story ever told will, as Jamie likes to call it, will unfold. Yeah, there's your brief AMC story for you. While it's 2:42, I got a few minutes left before I've got to run. Yeah, DM me on Twitter. If you don't follow me on Twitter, at the Wooston. At the Wooston is my Twitter. That's pops up on my phone. It's one I'm most likely to see, except for when I'm working or something. I won't have a chance to answer, but I try to answer everybody who messages me. Even the people who like to send me messages and tell me I'm fat, I'll answer them back too. Okay, I missed a couple of super chats here. Pastor Blunt around. Chances metamaterial becomes a household name and blue chip stock. They seem to have a hold on the nanotech world and awesome real world consumer applications. I don't know how much of a household name they'll become, but they're projected to be like a $10 billion a year company in the next few years. And they have a ridiculous amount of patents on this like nanotechnology and metamaterial technology. And there was, talk before they went public last year that Sony wanted to buy them for the technology. And the offer, I guess, wasn't enough. When they were merging, the investment banks offered $500 million for them, and the CEO laughed at him. He's like, ha, 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 you idiots. Because these investment banks know how much is owed for the shorting of Torchlight and others, that they thought they could buy the company for $500 million. They get themselves a screaming deal. And not have to worry about covering all these positions. And Metamaterial said, no, we have plans to do all sorts of rad stuff in the future. So they might be well known among us nerd circles, but I don't know if they'll be a household name like Amazon or something. I have no idea about that. Seth Hancock, Houston, you're goated, man. I have a hiccup right now. I'm trying to transfer my GME out of Robinhood, and they're giving me the runaround and will not let me transfer out. What do I do, man? This is no BS. I had the same thing when I was trying to transfer my shares from Robinhood to Fidelity. It took like 2.5 months. And twice, they just kind of like, oh, just forget it, and your Robinhood account goes back to normal. I'm like, no, dude, transfer out. Send it to Fidelity. It took a lot of me calling and complaining to both Fidelity and Robinhood to finally make it happen. It's just got to complain a whole bunch. Do the whole like, my attorneys will be in contact crap that channel your inner Karen and make it so annoying they don't want to deal with you anymore, and then finally will just transfer your shares to a new account. That's probably the best advice I have for you. All right, I'm at 2:45. I got to go for the day. Tomorrow I'm going to do a show. It might only be for like an hour or so, but I'm going to do a charity show tomorrow. So any super chats and things like that will be going to a good cause. So join me tomorrow. I'm not sure what time I'll have my window, probably around 1 o'clock. I'll have a window tomorrow to do one. So stay tuned for that. And then I'll do a regular show Wednesday and Friday. And I hope to see you all there. I will talk to you guys tomorrow. Awesome. Thank you so much. And enjoy your weekend. And muhaha.